So in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about how to break the spell of slavery in your life, in the day-to-day life, as you're interacting with people and as power dynamics are shifting, how the hidden forces of power control you in various environments. And this is something that I discovered recently as I started to analyze and observe what was happening and how I was reacting to certain people and how I did not have power in certain situations. And due to lack of power, I was losing opportunities, resources, and I had essentially become a puppet of certain people in my environment. And so if you're going through this experience of feeling lack of power, lack of prestige, lack of honor, lack of control, lack of resources, lack of position, and you feel drained, you feel a loss of energy, you don't have the motivation, maybe you are sleeping too much. All of these are signs that you might be controlled or oppressed by some people in your environment. Some of them you can see, some of them you can't even see, because the large powers are almost always functioning in hidden ways that we don't realize and what's happening. Look at all the people who are moving around in the same pattern, having the same routine, and it's all very predictable. Something is at play there. Something is at control where people are almost behaving like puppets. And so I want to talk to you a little bit about that. I want to talk to you how to break free from this spell and what causes this spell and what's behind this spell and what's the basis of this spell. And I'm going to be talking to you about that. But before that, I have an update for you. One of my clients just closed a very high profile senior executive from Coca-Cola who was a very, very senior executive in one of the regions in the world. And I cannot deliberately tell you the exact title and the region because you would know who it is. And this is someone who has done, billions of dollars in deals, this person, and he has agreed to be the chairman of one of my clients. And the client is in his early 20s. He's an Indian American businessman now, and he's building this company on my directions and my advice. And he signed up a couple of months ago for the one-on-one mentorship. And after 3 sessions, in 3 sessions, he did this. And I have another client who after 2 sessions, and this client has a little bit of a head start. He started a couple of months ago also. He is about to finish his board. He has 1 member left and he would be moving to talking to his law firms and accounting firms. So if you are someone who wants to learn how to do multi-million dollar deals, if you want to be positioned to do multi-million dollar deals, reach out to me on the email below and we will take it from there. I have a group mentorship program coming up in 1 month and a half from the date of this video. So it starts on 29th May 2024. So if you want to have these results, reach out to me, message me, email me, message me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, or just email me on Gmail. And then, I will give you a form to fill so that I have some information about you, who you are, what are your goals, and then we'll do a call, and then we will decide if this is the right fit for you or not. So if that's you, email me, and I'll talk to you soon. So let's get into the video now, how to break the spell of slavery. So I want you to take a note of various environments that you enter from the moment you wake up. Bedroom is an environment. Who is there? Then you go, you meet your friends or you go to the office. What's the environment like? And then family, friends, relatives. And in these environments, I want you to make a list of all of the people in each of these environments. And then I want you to identify who has authority in this environment. For example, your friends, who has authority among your friends? And what is the basis behind that person's authority? So maybe there is a leader figure in your friend circle and he seems to be getting all the leverage, all the attention, all the power, all the resources. What's behind that person's power? I want you to ask, what is this person's authority based on or composed of? Same thing with the office. Your boss, he's in a position of power. What is his authority composed of? Or a high-performing employee that you may be in a competition with, does this person's authority composed of? If you're a business owner and you have a major client that you tend to feel uncomfortable around, out of ground, out of balance around, what does this person's authority composed of? If you have an extremely attractive girl that just makes you weak in the knees, all the power in your body leaves and goes to her, and for some reason you find yourself spending more money than you want to on this girl, what does her authority composed of, right? And if you just ask this question and really almost analyze and start making notes as to why does this person have this kind of an unusual power? And some of the things that women do is that women's authority, especially in a relationship, is around sex, food, and if you have children, then over the minds of your children, right? Because mother's role is very important in a child's life. So these are the three these are the three forms of authority typically women have in a marriage or in a relationship. So that's a power structure. And so if you are someone who knows how to cook better, there will be a disruption in her power. Or if you are someone who's better in bed or has more options in the sexual arena than her, then there will be a dismantle of her power structure and you would have significant amount of power. And she would feel out of ground. And if you're a woman watching this, you could just be aware of these dynamics as well. Men tend to control the rent and the real estate aspect of it. This is my house, this is my infrastructure, and that could be the source of a man's power. So that's within the bedroom and within the house, right? In the family, maybe mother, father, they control, again, resources, and their power is based on that. So anybody who has control of important resources, whether it's information, sex, entertainment could be one form, violence could be another, although, violence, government tends to have a monopoly on violence, so their power is based on that. Each of these environments, each of these things tend to have power over you. And when somebody has control over these resources, somebody has control over, things like violence, their words tend to have a commanding effect. You could even feel in the vocal tone that there's power coming out. And their words in those particular situations have a commanding effect. And their words almost work like spells. And I remember my mother, when she controlled all the resources, if she raises her voice and tells me to do something, it was almost like my body would freeze up and I would have to listen and obey her. And I would have to submit to her. This is before I was financially independent. So, and I noticed even with women, especially when I was in a monogamous relationship and I was sexually dependent on this woman, she had more options than me. This is, almost a decade ago now. In those situations, I would find myself helplessly submitting to her authority, to my disadvantage, to to my shame, you can say. And I just could not understand that I don't even want to do this and I'm doing it. What is this unusual sense of power? And I also realized she had controlled my mind, with beauty. And she was a Serbian girl, very beautiful. And at that time, I was in India. So a Serbian girl in India is extremely rare. And her power was based around scarcity. That her ethnicity was in demand here, her looks were in demand, and it was scarce. So that's what her power was based on. If we move countries and I go to Serbia, she would not have the same power or command over me. But in India, the dynamics shifted, right? So I'm just giving the romantic relationship as an example because that area tends to be something where a lot of the men are controlled and find themselves agreeing to things that they don't want to agree to. And it could be vice versa. If you're a girl watching this, it could be the other way also. You might be agreeing to things that you don't want to agree to. And it's all a function of power dynamics in relationships. And so you have to look into on what basis does this person's authority stands, and on what basis is this person standing and commanding. And if you can restructure that, if you can find a way to have that commodity, whatever it is, valuable commodity from someplace else and create a bit of competition and chaos, you could start to disrupt each and every power structure in your life. And you can start almost collecting so much power, and you can be that authority figure who commands at the workplace, at the house, in every scenario. Because once you understand the formula of authority and power, then you could turn things in your favor. So how you turn things in your favor and how you redirect resources to you and good things to you is by understanding how each environment is structured, what are the values of each environment, and who has those values and what are they. Mere identification of those values can, just understanding that can put you in a very advantageous position. Another very powerful form of leverage is real estate. This body needs protection. So concrete is just walls of concrete, gives the feeling of safety and security to human life. So people who control real estate can almost be like puppet masters. And that's how parents, when we are in their homes, we feel controlled by them because they are in command. They control that space. And if we live there and if we are dependent on them for that, they will have control and command over our life. So real estate, food, sex, anything that's essential to the body, and then mental, mind related. So, like beauty can be a form of power. People value beauty. So beauty is again visual and mental. You could look at Kim Kardashian. She has created this image and it's again around beauty. So beauty is also a form of power. Violence, but again, violence belongs to the government. We don't have access to it. We should not have access to it. But violence is another form which is used. In the mafia world, violence is almost the primary source of power. Using this power, they acquire money. Using money, they acquire connections and bring people together. So powers are of many kind, and people who are in positions of power, people who are in positions of authority in your life, you would notice that resources tend to flow in that direction. Things that people value flow in the directions of people who are in positions of power and authority in that particular environment. And I I started to see this pattern that I went into some environments and I was not that desirable to certain women initially. And then as I started to gain more and more control over the environment, and I started to understand how it works and what the environment values, and I start positioning myself with those values, and I start to gain more and more authority, this same body that I have was all of a sudden extremely desirable for a woman that I had a crush on. So, and also I was desirable to other men as a role model. So there are these patterns that are happening. There are these web of relationships, and there are these dynamics that are at play, human dynamics that are at play, that govern how resources are going to be distributed in the world. And it's one of the most fascinating subjects if you start observing, analyzing, and kind of like unplugging yourself from the environment and just observe who are the puppet masters of the environment at the bedroom level, at the family level, at the office level, at the community level, neighborhood level, global level. You will start to see patterns as to how multifaceted, and the higher you go on the echelons of power, you would see that power starts to become more and more complex and more multifaceted. You have people who get into charities and donate to certain organizations, or have connections with politicians, or have control over real estate, or have control over food supply, control over resources, control over important commodities like energy, and important commodities like nuclear weapons at the geopolitical level. And how all of these things at the geopolitical level affect negotiations and where the resources move. It's not an accident that America has the most powerful nuclear weapons in the world, and using that leverage and a very big piece of land and resources and a very robust financial system, using these leverages, they have a lot of power at the geopolitical level. And that's why its economy is just so big. And it's still the largest economy per capita, and it's got a lot of money. And you can see resources, how they move is based on power and leverage. So if you want something from a conversation, from an environment, and you don't want to be the one who is the puppet, you want to be someone who is in charge, someone who is in control, someone who is in command, you would have to analyze each of the environment and identify things which are valuable to that environment and have control over those things, so that you can be positioned as someone who is an authority figure in every area of your life. And you would start to dictate and govern how things move in your direction, right? So that's today's video, and that's how you break the spell of slavery, is you understand the nature of power, and you identify individuals who have power over you, and what is the basis of that power, and it happens that, in office environments, the boss has the power, but it's not always the case. Sometimes there is an employee who gets really close to the boss and understands him and understands a certain need, and then makes himself irreplaceable to a point that the company will not survive without that one person. And actually, there is a mentee of Dan Pena. I'm not going to name who he is, but he structured an acquisition being an employee. So being an employee of a company, he ended up acquiring the company and actually becoming the owner of the company. And that's exactly how he did it. That he had grown the company, I think 5 to 10 times the size, and a lot of the growth happened because of him. So he knew where all the controls were, even though at the company level he wasn't the boss, but as an employee, he had complete control. So he had the power to disrupt the business and change, change the front of it and just form another company and start his own business and disrupt this business. So he had that form of leverage, that he took complete control of the company in a different format. And then he used that as a leverage to negotiate a purchase price or to almost pressure them into a deal. And he raised capital on the name of the company, and he ended up acquiring the company and ended up making a bunch of money. So it was a very interesting case study about leverage. And the most important thing in a negotiation is the leverage. So I hope you enjoyed the video. It's a complicated subject. I wanted to give you my perspective on it. I'm sure some of the things that you were aware of, but if you go back in your life and you start observing the whole scope of power structures and what they're based on and why, certain people have power. For example, celebrities. Why do they have this kind of power? And I remember Donald Trump is someone that is, I respect and admire. And he had, I think, McDonald's in his private jet. And there was a video of him having McDonald's in his private jet. I swear to you, for the next 1 week, all I wanted to do was eat McDonald's. Just because he had that McDonald's, and it was in the background. But because I idolized Donald Trump so much, it has a power over me. It has a kind of power over me. So these subtle things, and then because of that, McDonald's sales go up. So you can clearly see the relationship as to when somebody has power, is an authority figure, they could almost command as to what other people do. And it has a very subtle effect on your mind, and you tend to do things unconsciously. I wasn't even aware why suddenly do I want to eat McDonald's? Because Donald Trump had it in his plane, and I respect him and I give him the authority. He's like a mentor. I've read his books. And it was extremely fascinating. So what if I just turn that thing around and I become someone like that? Or you become someone like that. If you consider that as a possibility, in your own way, you could nurture that kind of authority and power and see how to cultivate that. So that's today's video, and I will talk to you soon.